what I know of the neighborhood and then segue into personal experiences with the neighborhood. So I guess to start, for both of you, in your own family, who the pioneers were in the family, and what was unique about their experience that would, basically, what was the moral of their story? What is it that you'd want people to know about them and take away from their story?
You want to go first?
Sure. So these are more personal first.
And then, and include in the neighborhood. I mean,
if it's
just
relevant. Yes.
Run with it, whichever way is the best way to answer it, I guess.
I think the pioneer in my family has to be my mom. She's a visionary, but she's also an action woman. She's pretty much she's an entrepreneur, and that's the life that I grew up in. Always small business. We've owned 2 different types of business, a restaurant and then now a nail shop. And my dad, he's always supported her. He tries to support as much as he can, but I think in our culture, although men are supposed to be the strong, breadwinner, it always, in my eyes, seemed like the women are more powerful and more action-oriented. It's not just about talk.
Because it's matriarch. Our history is matriarch.
Yeah. And so my mom has always spearheaded every time she wanted to open a business or do something new. It was, she took the lead and kind of helped build our family around that. And I grew up in the small business world too. And so growing up, I feel like I've worked my entire life, but it's family work, so it's very different. You support your family, that's just how it is. And so I think when I got into doing community organizing and just reconnecting to my roots in Little Saigon, it just felt so natural and just, I think this is where I was supposed to go. And then the transition was just like, it was made for me, the position and the work. I felt like I was just doing work for my family pretty much. So that's where I see myself and my family fitting into the broader scheme of the community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow, so well put. I feel like Quinn and I live parallel lives. And
but on opposite ends.
On opposite ends. She's from a Buddhist background. I'm a very Catholic background.
Yeah.
And some way or another, we found each other a year and a half ago, and here we are now. And Little Saigon. Yeah. Back to where we came. So I think it's my turn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. My mother.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting dynamic. She is a visionary, she's an innovator, but my dad is also. Like, they're both huge risk takers and both entrepreneurs back in Vietnam. And coming here, they took a huge risk. And Little Saigon back in the day, the I-5 really tore the international ethnic communities apart. You had the CID, the Chinatown, Japantown, east of I-5, and then everything west after the freeway was built was obsolete. It was run down, it was dangerous, just unvalued parcels, you want to call it in developers' terms. And in a lot of ways, the Vietnamese community came and it was very small and they really helped each other out. It was a really camaraderie, kind of like, we don't really know you, but we're the only thing that is familiar. And the Catholic Church was actually just right down on 12th Avenue, 2 blocks from here by Bailey Gatzerts, and like the market, Việt Hoa, was already open. Dennis Chin did the Asian Plaza development, so Việt Hoa family was already there. And my parents saw this location, right? And they were like, oh, it was like 200, 400 square feet at most, like half of this. This is all built illegally, by the way. And, and the fact that, and they saw, they're like, they're not used to working for anyone. They're like, this is open something. So 6 months after coming here, my mom worked at the American Sub Shop. My father worked at a Paris bakery in Pike Place Market. They're like, let's just take a risk. And so they got all of their friends to like be like, hey, can I borrow money? And next thing you know, so my mom, this is a great dynamic. My mom's a creative. she is just an innovator. She's like, let's try it. My dad's like, okay, he is a logistics man,
Yeah.
the finance guy. Okay, he's the one, like, mom was in the kitchen trying to figure out what to do. My dad would be at City Hall being like, I don't know what I'm doing. And what's great about this story is how welcoming Seattle is and was. And how much they wanted my parents to succeed. Like, they jumped through so many loopholes. I don't know if they want me to disclose this or not, but
I know.
I don't even
have
know.
to edit some of these
I have to
stories.
edit, but it's the truth. Like, my parents did barely limited English. My dad had the best English, and his English is atrocious. And now he's like, no, you don't understand. Back in the day, there was a pressure to speak, and so went to the city and like, didn't know what to do. He's like, how do I attain this? And then whoever was working public health and like planning, whatever, was just like, I'm just gonna help you, and like took my dad under his wing and did jump through all the loopholes and everything to get this production running. And even when like literally like the legal department sink was outside, like every type of regulation was broken because like Seattle was still blue collar, and this new wave of immigrants was still very new and just very accepted to the city workers at that time, and we were really fortunate. And so I grew up in Little Saigon. I used to skip Sunday school and just hang out in here at Liam's pet shop, get my ears pierced at the nail shop, which is very funny because like one time the ear piercer wasn't there, and someone else that wasn't qualified was piercing my ear, and the whole time she's closing her eyes and being like,
Oh my gosh.
It's just one of the many stories of Little Saigon, and just back to resonating to grew up in the business. Like, it wasn't work, it was just supporting the family, and now I think we both feel like Little Saigon is part of our family. And it's something that we want to not just preserve, but it's not about preservation, it's about taking what's familiar and being innovative and understanding the idea of the city is growing, the economy is growing, and we don't have enough space, and development is inevitable. And it could be spun in a positive light.
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess, which leads into the next, we talk quite a bit about the community base and the general support in the neighborhood. How does that work specifically? I mean, the Chinese, for example, have the Changhua. I mean, is it church-based? Is it, elaborate on the...
On our board, of our Friends of Little Saigon, or just
Or
in
is
general?
the community...
Community politics kind of
Right.
thing, or how the
How it supports each
Fraction.
other. Yeah.
That's you, Quinn.
Well, I think the Chinese Americans have been around for so long, and they've really established and have this great model of how they come together around family associations. I still don't really understand what family associations are besides having similar names and then you're part of a family association.
Yes. It's only I know too.
But I think for the Vietnamese community, it is a little bit religious based in that the Catholic community is extremely strong. And if you're a part of that community, I think there's a really big support.
And a lot of resources.
And a lot of resources. The Buddhist community is a little different because just the way that we practice things, it's not as...
unison. But there is unison, but it's fragmented because like the Catholic Church, the entity always gathers together. And then within...
Practices are very different.
Well, you can explain your side.
We got our own things going on. But I think beyond religion, I think that's what's lacking in the Vietnamese community is there's no there's no central area or place or association that really brings everyone together. And I think that kind of, that's why it spurred our work and spurred a lot of organizing work with even the older generation. I think they came together around a very specific cause. And there's so many different organizations trying to do different things.
But pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's not
Different,
like, I think we're just trying to figure out, like, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel, we're just trying to gather all the resources and all the communities that already exist and find a way to kind of collaborate and have a stronger hold on our identity in Seattle. right? I think that's what it is because it's about like creating more opportunities outside of religious affiliations. Because like anything culturally based is religious affiliated for the most part. And so now we're like there's so much more to this. It's like so much more unity within the Vietnamese community that as we are stronger, we could like be even bigger, stronger ties without the whole entire world, even with our motherland. You know, I think the United States and Vietnamese Americans are the most resistant to that, especially in the older generations. And so kind of bridging that gap is really important.
I mean, I think because we're so considered not young in terms of immigration, but we're still trying to define what that is. And I think that's where we're coming together and trying to define what that means. And it's also very generational. Right now, there is a huge gap between an older generation and the younger, up-and-coming generation of what we're trying to do and what we're trying to define ourselves as. The first wave, or like the older generation, they have their own ways of doing it, doing their own thing. And then for us, the like 1.5, the Vietnamese American, it's a struggle to figure out what that is.
But I think it's a beautiful struggle because like the thing
It
is,
gives us an advantage in a lot of ways.
Well, yeah, and also respecting our elders in the way that they form the building blocks to this neighborhood. You know, they have the motivation, the audacity, the courage to take all their scarcity, all of their loss, and make something like this neighborhood. And then that's a lot to really take in, is the fact that through losing everything and starting all over again, like the idea that we can, you know, like not preserve but just elevate it in a sense of like out of respect and out of just our own identity, what it means to be Vietnamese Americans. Here, so that's what it is. Yeah.
So this is actually jumping ahead a little bit, but that was actually going to be.
Yeah, it's possible, but
Okay.
do you get my question?
Yeah. So I think that what bring the Vietnamese younger generation together to look at the changes in our community, in our district, because they saw the threat, they saw the craziness that happening in our community, and without people involvement, I think they know we're going to lose in this battle, and that's why the younger generation step up the plate, and they feel like they have a voice to contribute to the community, to their own root, and that's why they stepping up. That's why they coming out.
And that's a very like Little Saigon's beginning history. Like you've been most involved. You've been here the longest, all of us. And like, can you talk about the basis of how this area even grew?
You know, I think this is well, my background. I'm just a pharmacist, and and I just work as a pharmacist for a long time, and then I started the Taminchi restaurants, and you know, at the time we able to go to any place that we can make the most money as a business person. But then at that time I told my family, you know, if we're going to do it, let's do it in Vietnamese community. We bring the wonderful stuff to the community. We want to show what is the good thing about the Vietnamese community, Vietnamese food, because Vietnamese food back then is just a hole in the wall, and that's like a mentality for the mainstream. And so I thought, let's push the envelope to see if it's going to work. So that's where it started. I
What
think
year
that.
was that?
That was in 2004, and then a few years later, I learned about the Yesoteras wanting to rezone from the 30 feet to 300 feet tall. At that time, I felt it is a major threat to our community because it's right next to us, and I said, as soon as that pass, the next door, which is the Little Saigon district, will be rezoned as well, and will be priced out of our community. And that's why I'm like, okay, we need to, I need to do something. So that's why back then, Quang Nguyen is a person that involved with the community. A few years prior to that, he informed me all this information, and I learned about it, and I educate myself, and I asked him to draw up a petition. And at that time, I had a bunch of petitions stand in front of my restaurant with a big umbrella. I'm cooking
That's
bánh
when I
khọt.
started working for the community.
I'm cooking bánh khọt right in front of my restaurants, and people, customer and friends and people pass by. They said, "What is going on?" I said, "You want some bánh khọt?" And they said, "Of course."
Not Bangkok.
And then they came and they came, and I said, "Well, before you start eating, I would like you to sign this petition." And they said, "What is it?" So that's how I inform my community, to let the people know, let the customer know there is a major threat to this community, and if we don't speak up, it's going to happen, and it is happening right now. And years ago, the truth is coming right now. We have so many projects that coming into Little Saigon district without the community concern, without any plan to include the Vietnamese community in their project. And that's why we work really hard to engage with them. We work really hard because beginning they're not thinking about that, and because when they hear about all these voices, all these amazing people around our community raising the voice, that's why I said, oh, maybe we should start talking to them. But they're talking, but what I want to see is on their blueprint, the plan that including the Vietnamese community, the blueprint, meaning the budget. What is the budget for this community on their plan? Talking is cheap. And I think that they engage talking to you. My concern is I need a hard number.
Exactly.
I don't care about the talking.
Exactly.
I do, so talking is good, but I want to see the fact.
So this is why I think this board is so fucking powerful, because the thing is, it is a dynamic play. It's just what it is. Like, you tap into this human psyche, this is what it is, okay? It's about the idealist, tugging at the heartstrings, of humanizing all parties involved, correct? Mm-hmm. The idea of like understanding, like he's been fighting this for the longest, and he's seen when, this is why he's jaded, but in a very good way. Not jaded, in a better in terms of experience, and be like, I am 4'11", I will sit on you. Like, do not mess with me.
She mean in a good term that I go with the fact. I go with the experience that I dealt with them. In the past, when they said let's support us with the terrace rezoning, so that we can engage talking with you. But we've been engaging with them since then. Nothing happened. So that's why I'm learning all this politics. Just keep talking, but they're just moving on with their agenda. So now I am wanting our new leaders of community engagement is, I want to see the number with their budget plan. You talk about this particular implement, this particular support. Every implementation, every support costs money. Where is your budget for this? Talk is cheap, but I want to see the real budget plan. that the city or private developers or whoever engaging with our community, this is our concern. What is the number that you are putting on the table? Otherwise,
exactly, and that's
It's just-
great. It's great, but that is the dynamic that we need. But they need to just perspective. They need to feel the pressure of it, but they have to understand like this idea of perfection, the idea that along the way of doing this, every side is going to make mistakes, you know, and understanding that it comes down to the Viet love that we have. It always comes down to the transparency that we have to engage with the city, with the developer, with the community, and understanding all sides. Because like without the understanding each other's stories and where we're coming from, then it's just all assumptions and fear. How do we break down this fear? How do we break down these assumptions? You know, and what are they going to make in hard policy to actually make that into fruition, right? Because right now, let's be honest, developer has the stronghold. They can do whatever they want because they have so much power, right? How do we change the language with the policy? How do we change the language with community motivation to want to not just preserve but enhance it? Because, you know, honestly, maybe the rezone isn't a bad thing in a long ways, because people are coming into this area and we have to accommodate to the population. So it's also a term of being selfless and everyone taking a little bit less than they have to. It's not about capitalizing gains here on the developer side. It's not about us needing social services. It's a medley of everything together, right?
Yeah. You know, it's a lot of people thinking that when we say that we against certain ordinance, they took it out of the context. They didn't listen to the whole message of what we are express our concern is. When we say that we are not with the rezoning policy because the rezoning, they rezone without thinking the negative impact to the community. That's what we
Consequences.
against.
Yes.
We support the progressive of our community. I support the growth, but this growth excluding our community, that's what I against. You see? So I support the growth. So the
exactly.
context is, you know, the detail is need to be looked at because they use our community, say, oh, this community against
Well,
the
going back to
progressive.
history.
But I said no, we are not against the progressive.
Yeah.
I like he talks so much. I love it. So it goes back
Because
to
it's like
Oh my, don't be rude.
I love him. No, this is where our dynamic is really messed
Wait,
up. No, go ahead. Quitting
you
your
want to
turn.
ask like a follow-up just so we can add to
Yeah. Sure,
I want to interject, but I want to make sure that we're
Yeah,
on.
I mean, I guess the follow, because we,
love this.
actually with that, we actually jumped way ahead and kind of through. It's like, oh,
fine,
answer that.
Knocking on questions.
I mean,
Do you want to get Quinn's thoughts on
yeah.
just the
Yeah.
development dynamic?
yeah, I guess
Yeah.
jump to that development dynamic, because the whole section essentially, I mean, question of whether the city's looked at as a partner or adversary or a backstop.
I think I have to go back to the history. Going back to the history of Little Saigon, as a community of refugees and immigrants, we are completely city government averse. We don't trust anything that has to do with government or politics, and we only take care of ourselves, right? But the fact that these, you know, are the people that built this neighborhood came from a war-torn country that the government failed them. That's the idea. The idea is the government failed them, and so how can we trust this to government? And so they're reverting back to the old ways of thinking, right? And so the history of Little Saigon, the history of the Vietnamese people in this particular neighborhood is that we can't trust the city, and within that, there's a stigma saying that, oh, we can do whatever we want in this neighborhood because no one's going to complain. The only reason why things don't get implemented anywhere else is the white people fucking complain. You know, they're fussy about it, they're detail-oriented, they have the time to talk to the city, engage with the city, where everyone in Little Saigon, all the business owners are, it's just this double standard. Because it's like, we want growth, we want to take care of our family, but we are micromanagers because of the fear of losing control, the fear of losing it all again. right? So there's no time to engage with the community or with the city or engage with each other, kind of. You know, everyone's in their own appropriate business, but at the same time, there's so much camaraderie behind that. Because it's like taking care of our own people without city engagement because of the history, of their experiences. So now our generation is the one be like, let's bridge it, let's merge this because it could benefit all sides. That's
And
different.
I think the change the reason why there's so many things happening right now, and I think our efforts are being pushed forward because I think we bring value into what this neighborhood is. It's not just we're another community of color and we oppose all these things. It's I think especially with this new organization with the Friends of Little Saigon, we're different in that we really, really value this place. It's not just another area that has a bunch of businesses, but we put in a lot of value and we kind of it flows out of us, like it naturally comes out, and you don't get that with some of the other organizing work that has happened in the past, or just groups that try to advocate on behalf of other communities or something like that. We're authentically doing it because we care so much.
And it's interesting because we're all just business owners or nonprofits or whatever, but like it's just out of that bit love and the fact that like we have the privilege to be in this position. We have the education, we have the background, we have the time. Not really. We try, as you see, we try to make the time and prioritize this because we feel so passionately about it, and this is an amazing time and amazing group to be in because I literally got joined last year, December 2016, and the progress from then and now is just like I had to sit there. I'm like, what? But it all stems from their advocacy and work like past 10 years, right? And
yeah, I mean this stuff doesn't happen overnight either. Even though it feels like it's happening naturally, it took decades of organizing, and I think a lot of different opportunities along the way to really bring a lot of these efforts forward. Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of that has to do with trust of the city and such, but what do you, as far as the developers that are moving in the neighborhood, I mean, one's local, but as far as, Lehigh, Navigation Center, well, that's not
It's
developed.
almost its own thing, yeah.
But leaving that one out, I guess, for now, because that, that's one of
Intercorp,
Inland Marine.
Plymouth Housing.
Plymouth Housing.
Plymouth Housing, is that?
Yes.
Also,
the tackle.
They just bought,
Links.
they just in the contract with the land.
Oh, the tackle place.
Yeah,
No.
links, tackle, fish and tackle.
Right at the corner of King and Rainier.
So this is
So
our
how
challenge.
how does the interaction then with the developer? I guess one, and to set up the full question, I guess also include whether there's even enough information being given by how it's disseminated, whether it's just finding out from the signs going up when. Start with that, and then whether in the interactions, whether you feel like you're getting anywhere with them, with wants for the neighborhood.
And we're focusing on Jackson Street just so people can kind of
So that'll be the Asian Plaza Development, the Intercorp, the Inland. How do you guys want Lehigh? How do you guys want? Oh, Lehigh's right there. How? This is very complex.
It's
so complex.
You gotta go first, and then I will.
Are you
go.
sure?
Yeah. Go.
The interaction is not natural. We have to force it. And I think there's been a lot of groundwork to push developers to talk with the community. And I think within the historic Chinatown International District, there are specific regulations that kind of push them to reach out. But when it comes to Little Saigon, because we're outside of those boundaries, it takes a lot more for us to get any information or learn about the developments. But I think 2017 is a very unique year, politically and locally, nationally and locally in the politics realm, and so it gives our community a little leverage to push and kind of engage all of these developers that are trying to take space in the neighborhood. Yeah, I don't know.
It's okay. I think just observing, okay, because like for a good like half a year, I was very quiet. Just kidding. Like just trying to absorb and learn how you guys function. Because like I'm coming from a small business entity, like learning about community engagement, learning about politics. I'm like, I never thought I would ever be involved. I barely vote before last year. I barely voted, and so now it's like this whirlwind of like engagement in politics. I'm just like, what am I getting myself into? But in a long way, it just goes back to that being love, of course. But the dynamic changed because some things we couldn't control was like the inland project, right? Or the Asian Plaza development. I remember when they first did the design review, there was so much fear on our end, like our end as in like the idea that you're taking away the identity of the neighborhood, you know. And then from there was this dialogue and like really like I think I taking steps to really understand the person behind the development, like Brian Chin, the Chin family, and their motivation and their drive, and just getting to know them. That takes time. It became very authentic and back to humanizing everything and everyone again. And the only way to do that is taking the time to understand each other's stories. And so, which was actually just like about 2 weeks ago, which was a really interesting thing that I don't think ever really happens, was bridging two developers to meet. That was weird, like, you know, I think it's very like not normal. But for me, I'm so novice and green. I'm like, what's wrong with doing that? Like, let me introduce you. And so like 2 weeks ago, we met at Jumin Tofu. That none of them had been in there, even though Brian has owned that property for 4 generations. Never stepped into Jumin Tofu and loved the environment, like the environment of that restaurant and Tanya, the owner. And then at that meeting, Intercorp met with Asian Plaza Development, and that was at first instinct it was like the fear of competition, right? But once they start talking about their ideas and their spread out plan, the blueprints, and understanding that it's not a direct compete. Like, how do each developing sites play off one another? And then at the end of the meeting, you saw the sign of relief on both people's faces, because I think we as Festival Saigon, we play as a liaison to like break down that fear, break down that intimidation. And this is a very idealistic approach, being like, you know, what it comes down to, it's about the numbers, and we understand that. But the first momentum is just like, how can we incorporate the developers with our board and our own landmark project, right? And how can we create a space that will draw people to want to come and be here? And this is a very unique space to do that, and it's kind of like a clean, fluffy slate. That's very fun.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a lot of the attraction to build her is not only because it's underdeveloped, but we're close to downtown. We're extremely central to everything throughout Seattle, and so it's a huge attraction. But even though our voices we don't see it as strong as we want it to, but in the realm of things, I think the Chinatown ID, Little Saigon, were very loud and very close-knit in that if you screw one person, we're gonna screw you over real hard too. So I think at least within this year, with the new developments coming in, they made sure to at least reach out to one organization, and then that became like, you gotta talk to everybody.
And it's such a cool thing to observe, like the power shift. It's not about power, it's just about having everyone on the same plane, trying to achieve everyone on the same playing level, the play field. And of course, like on the long, we're gonna have some bumps and some like hiccups or whatever, but it's taking those hiccups and how do we move forward?
Yeah,
and that's a different mentality.
Just making them realize that this is very different. Building in a very ethnic and culturally diverse community is very different from building anywhere else. And so you have to understand the neighborhood and the community. Yeah. You can't just come in and do your own thing and think that it'll be successful. Because I think where we merge and where we're understanding each other, the community and the developers, is that to be successful, I mean, we want everything to be successful, and so the only way to do that is you need to engage with people and really understand what
the dynamic
Yeah.
and demographic of this neighborhood.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
it's like simple things like that that you assume they would think about.
They don't. They don't
But
think of it at
they
all. They're
don't.
like, what? I'm like, yes, girl. It's very, very intriguing.
Yeah.
But that's a very cool approach because it's such a beginning phase, and it is like the constraints of the preservation board, the ISRD, the review boards. And that's why we're those like guys really pushing to be part of the ISRD review board or just unison in some way so that we can navigate the language. Because is that the idea developer, who gets to set the tone? Who gets to control like the environment and the placeholder of a community, Is it the 1%? Is it the people that only have money? And that's the language we have to change. Yeah. Go ahead, Anthem.
She's talking about the landmark.
So can you
Landmark.
talk
How about
about can you ask the question again?
He's like,
We went around in a circle.
we moved around in like a total circle.
I just want to make sure that you.
Sure. So essentially, it's generally interaction with the developers, starting with whether there's enough information in the community from them about the projects, and early, none of the projects have started yet, but with the early engagement, whether there's been progress, or your take on.
Okay, so I think that you heard Quinn and Invi talk about the engagement that they feel it's been success, that the community, that this developer have reached out, even though beginning is really hard for them to come out and talk to us. We have to dig really hard and have to poke them really hard for them to talk to us. So, but now they kind of aware of the community, and then they reach out to different groups. But to me, that is talk is cheap. Again, I'm coming back to that fact because all these people are saying, oh yeah, this idea, but I want to see the implementation. I would like to see what this private developer and non-profit organization that moving in that have an impact. I don't care either a positive or negative impact. If a positive impact, what is going to affect? Who is going to affect? And then if a negative impact, who they're going to affect with that negative impact? We need to have that conversation at the table. We need to have a hard number to solve those answers. So right now we haven't get there yet. And I think that they're talking, but I think that our next step is we want a hard number. We want to see, hey, you said that you engage with our community. This is our concern. How do we preserve the feel of Little Saigon District? Bring in your designer, bring in your architecture to talk about this and address about this. And let me see the drawing. Let me see how much you put in to make this type of feeling in this area. And then, go beyond that. I think that this non-profit that Gwen and Ian mentioned about the inland, they are break ground already. You see that. The Lehigh right on Jackson Street. Those are the non-profit group that using the city fund to build their project.
Only Lehigh.
Only
Inland took $10 million. You check it, and it's a fact.
They're all private except for Lehigh, but Inland uses because they do affordable housing.
Right.
They can ask for public dollars.
So they whatever the project using the public fund to put on their project, they need to respond to the community that they serve here. Meaning they need to get the community member who relate to this community to move into those projects and live there and be a resident and they need to create a affordable retail space to bring the small businesses to maintain the real feeling of the Little Saigon district. Because when you know, they all know all this number, but they don't want to play the card until we call them out, until we ask them about it. Then they say, maybe they stuck with this policy, they stuck with that policy. I said, you know, policy is your bottom line. What is your bottom line? What can you put for the community? And to me, all these folks, they saying that, you know, they're not around for them to talk to us. We invite them to certain community engagement. They send somebody that doesn't make the decisions to us. To me, that's just a running around the bush.
Inefficient.
We want them to come to the table with the tools. They understand our concern. We let them know our concern, but they have not responded to our concern. They keep running around the
Well,
bush.
we do that. This is where I think our board is strategic in a way that we have to implement the city. You know, this is where the policy changes happen. This is where engaging with the city on a manner of not just strongholding, but just awareness and understanding the liability, the value in it. Because without personal incentive, nothing gets done. Let's get real. So, you know, this is where it comes in.
Yeah, you know, I learned a little bit about what the Chinatown happened to their community back when they built a kingdom. The city developer promised so much to the Chinatown community, and guess what? They built it, and they break it down. They built 2 more stadiums, and those answer is still not answered. The question the Chinatown was concerned is, you know, when you do this, we lose our businesses. We lose businesses because it becomes so expensive for our residents to be in Chinatown, and then we lose all the parking, and we lose the customer. When there's no parking, the customer are not around. The city said, yes, we will find a way, and this is how many decades ago, and they still haven't responded. So that's why I want a realistic. I said, you know, if you said you're concerned about this, this is our concern. We have a Vietnamese population that's all around the city. They don't live right in this neighborhood. So they come here, they need to drive, and they need to find a parking space. Where is the city plan for this accommodation? We want to see that blueprint. We want to see that budget that they say.
I think it goes back. It goes back
They
to
don't.
the city.
They talk about this. Oh, they're here,
But
but they don't do it.
Because
So
you
that's
have to
why I'm like,
understand that everything is flawed. And you know, this is what it is. Everything is fucking flawed, which is fine. That the idea of an idealistic Seattle with no cars, real time suffers with that idealism of understanding that Little Saigon is distinctive because it's such a commercial hub. And it is a cultural hub that is valued also because we have people from suburbia, everyone coming into this neighborhood for that identity. And in a way, and at the same time,
So yeah, something weird.
How's your oral history project going?
well, we may be.
Our song?
Our song, yeah. Our song. We may be partnering with the Vietnamese magazine. It's called Xin Chào magazine.
Okay.
So we may be collaborating with them.
I'm part of the same group, but we just applied for a grant to hire like staff to actually record stories.
Oh, that's great.
Because we can't do it.
Because you
just
know,
no
all of us are
time.
volunteer, and then we
No
have
time.
a real job, and then we involved with so many organizations, and the community is changing so fast.
Yeah.
And we don't focus on the changing that all these developers are coming in town. I think that we will look back and we will regret of what we didn't do.
You know, I worked on an oral history project in grad school in one of my preservation classes. It was the Museum of Black Diamond commissioned UW to do an oral history because there's black diamonds having a huge redevelopment. Like the city's black diamond is going to triple in size in the next 25
Oh,
years.
wow.
Yeah.
But the developer who was doing it actually gave money to the museum. Like it was kind of this like
Oh,
round
did you?
because if the
stories?
people,
Wow.
if the interviewees knew that it was money from the developer, they would have just wanted nothing to do with it. But it was the developer trying to give like saying, okay, we know this whole we're radically altering the city, and so they paid us to do the oral history.
The Black Diamond
Museum.
city.
But
The developer pay you?
paid the museum,
Oh.
who then hired UW.
Yeah. Maybe it's something you can ask for
Are
the
you sure?
navigation center,
What
too.
about you? What about your group? You got anybody pay you?
Oh yeah, how are you guys doing this?
This is all passion.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like us. We're all passion. We're not being paid for this
Okay.
shit
Yeah.
either.
We'd love to apply for grants at some point, but
Yeah.
One of the best things I did was we had to transcribe the interviews at the end,
Oh.
which an hour-long interview. I mean, with
Oh my
it's-
gosh.
If you're a fast typer, it was like 12 hours.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I found a online service. I mean,
Oh.
where you just
Yeah.
upload the
Nowadays.
audio file.
Yeah.
2
Wow.
hours,
Is it
you know,
good?
6 hours later, perfect transcription.
Wow.
Wow.
You did a bit, but I ended up, but then it was just a bit much.
That's crazy.
those overview sources are like,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
put me out of business, actually.
Maybe I should have.
I heard there's so many overseas services, even lawyer nowadays, they get their sources information from overseas. Even the situation is here. The overseas folk can go online, can do all
Better
type of research
circulation. You
and
should do
pull up
that.
the
I know.
information and
I have
present it to
terrible
the lawyer
circulation.
firm, and the lawyer firm use those information to sue people.
So I guess as long as they have access to LexisNexis or
What's your ETA, hun?
Me? Oh, just a moment.
So I guess I won't have to ask a question really after this, I don't think.
Yeah.
Since we're kind of segueing into it anyway.
I'm good now.
As far as
Be cozy again.
Yeah.
Get love mode.
we were talking about what interaction with the developers and kind of which leads into the vision of the future for the neighborhood, which we've already kind of talked about
Yeah.
a bit. But what would be absolutely required for this to remain Little Saigon?
Parking.
We're done.
Ownership.
You can go.
Ownership.
But
Ownership,
so that would be the to
Well-
continue. But that's how I'm coming back.
But I
What,
think-
what can give? What's ideal, but what can also give? But
Yeah.
what's-
This is
You-
the
you
hard
go
one.
first. Yeah.
This is very
You go
hard
first. Yeah.
because it's also like the first generation just being tired and wanting to sell all of their land. Like actually, I think like more than half of the property in Little Saigon is Vietnamese owned. It's either Chinese owned or Vietnamese Chinese owned. And at a time where I think as a board, we struggle with almost keeping motivating them to keep it within, caring about the community enough to keep it within the community. That's one hurdle. Is the Vietnamese already own businesses, the Asian already own businesses, caring enough to want to keep it within the Vietnamese community. Because most of the time, they're just so rich, they don't care, or or they're so old, they don't care anymore, or there's no form of motivation within the newer generation to take over, right? That's one hurdle.
And I mean, it's understandable
Yes.
for property owners to just want to sell off.
Yes.
I mean, you can make money and you don't have to think about anything else.
Exactly.
It takes a lot of effort to care and to understand what you want the property and the neighborhood to look like. And so I think that's where we come in to try to educate and bring that value or that sense of ownership from the community out. Because it's not just about space and property. This is much larger. It's we have to continue to educate not just our community but the city about how to engage and with developers on what they should be thinking about in terms of engagement. I mean, we scratched the surface when we said that developers are kind of interested. That doesn't mean anything. It's important, but that's very
I think it goes back to our vision,
surface.
understanding that the Vietnamese culture, the Vietnamese people, is integrated and part of the American society. You know, and having that sunshine, having that contrast of cultures, of awareness, of understanding is just so vastly important on a bigger scheme of empathy, on a bigger scheme of getting the individual to live outside of their own worlds. And even to go back to the marginalized community, I love that they're here. I love the social services around this neighborhood, and because it makes people uncomfortable in a great way. Like the stairs to get up to 7 Pepper Star is awesome. Like you bring a bunch of white folks up there, they're like, oh my god, I'm about to see someone shoot up with drugs. Then so be it. You know, I love that the fact that but it's also protecting them in a sense that this idea in society that we have to cleanse. Or why can't it be integrated? Like, who says the psychotic or whatever, or the juggler, or who says that they are the negative impact? Maybe it's you trying to make perfection, right? And so that's what is so cool about this neighborhood is the fact that we have these marginalized communities here, and how do we learn to live with them? And how do we learn to engage with them for everyone to be safe? You know, because I think they want a safeguard too. Like, you know what I really want to ask? Did the city ever ask the homeless, the marginalized community, if they wanted a navigation center? Like, did they even ask? Yeah, did they even ask the people that they want to serve? You know, this is a very interesting dynamic and awareness that I think our group can come to light. What else do you want to say?
Yeah. But we should talk about what we need.
What we need. Okay, go ahead.
So-
All you.
So I think, you asked the question, what does it take to
keep Little Saigon.
to keep Little Saigon? I think the answer, like you heard, is not about just one thing. She talked about the engagement with the city, with the developers. You talk about the needs, like the parking needs, and dealing with the cultural differences, and let the larger community to embrace that cultural differences. For me, I think what is it about Little Saigon is we are coming from a background that she pointed out, war-torn background. We need to build out a stability in the new country. When the developers, when the city, when the government are not transparent, now we go back to that same mode that, they're going to do what they're going to do, and we just need to focus on our own. And I think that older generation thinking that way, but I think the younger generation say, no, we have the right to request this, we have the right to do this, and we're going to engage with all these people. And the homeless navigation center, the Lehigh project, the inland projects, all these projects that they call supporting the community. What they really support is which community that they're supporting in this particular neighborhood. That's what my question would be. To build Little Saigon, you need to bring the Vietnamese folks back to this Little Saigon. To build the Little Saigon district is to make sure that we do have the ownership of our community. The ownership being, you know, if you're going to do a affordable housing, why don't you allow them to lease to own their apartment? Why don't you allow them to lease to own their retail space? Because those things are, when you empower people to become the owner of their property, they become part of the community. But you know, that's why I'm saying all these folks, including the city, including the developers, and include some of the nonprofit that working with them, this all lip service. We learn from the past. We want to see the ownership that pass it on and create the opportunity for the community here to own it.
So maybe, how about take a little visual trip down Jackson Street in the future. What would you want to see physically?
What, should I start?
Physically, yeah.
Because I'm not. I want to see a bustling area. I want to see people engaging with each other. I feel like Seattle and the tech culture has many advantages and positive attributes as technology has given us. It also isolated the human person in a way that there's so many ways to avoid each other now. And that's dangerous. That's so dangerous to me. And so I think Little Saigon is kind of an advocacy area to be in each other's spaces where that inclusivity, the idea of everyone is invited, everyone feels welcomed. You know, like when you go to certain places like Capitol Hill, or you go to Georgetown, or like Ballard, whatever, or they go to certain like View Village or Bellevue, like, oh, that's too bougie. Then you go down south to like Brent End, they're like, oh, that's too ghetto. I'm like, and then this area, it could be encompassing all of that, like the bougie, the ghetto, the funkiness, the grit within, and also the idea of beautifying it within all of that. Is that idealistic? Probably it is, but like it's about the idea of creating a well-rounded community, well-rounded neighborhood that doesn't exclude anyone. It's not about exclusivity at all. It's about the idea that we need to learn how to live with each other's differences. And that's very idealistic, I know, but that's like kind of what I see when I see like walking Little Saigon, you'll see the grit, you'll see the polishness, you'll see a little bit of everything, so everyone will feel welcome to be here. And that is like attractive as fuck to me, in a sense of like business and marketing and money making too. In a lot of ways. Yeah, go ahead.
And what can developers do to help with that vision?
Listen to the community. Take a little less than what the idea of like profit like capital gains, and maximizing profitability, capital gains, like maximizing it, and maybe taking a little less to engage with the community, and the community and the city taking, like everyone to take a little less. Even like the community members here, we have to learn how to adjust and be fluid and understand that change is inevitable, and we can't be just stuck in our ways of being anymore, and understanding that it's okay, that it's going to change and it's going to be different, but how can we make it change for you to be happier, or how affordability or approachable, right? Like the whole idea of the commercial space being approachable, tangible, making commercial space that will promote micro pods, like 800 square feet, where someone can pursue their passions and not have to go into the big corporations because they think it's a safeguard. Like having an idea that you want to pursue your passion, and developers creating spaces for that to actually be feasible. You know, that's the long-term goal for economic vitality, is being creative and not being this homogenous state of being. Yeah.
I think when I envision my ideal of what Little Saigon could be, I think of how I was brought up, and once I have children, and once I have a family, will I be able to bring my kids here, and will my grandparents or my parents are they still going to be around to enjoy this area? And what will it take for me to be able to do that, or for them to still connect with this neighborhood? And I mean, a lot of it has to do with the businesses and the cultural components of this neighborhood, and we're still trying to define what that is. I mean, Vietnamese culture is unique, but it's also a mishmash of a lot of
Colonialism.
yeah, colonization.
We don't really have our own identity.
Yes,
It's
we
fine.
do.
We do.
But just clearly defining that and just have something that people can connect to. And so it has to be a place that's safe. And I think when, if developers are successful in building out their projects, I think they need to think about the flow and
Thoughtfulness.
yeah, thoughtfulness around how not only pedestrians but cars, because we'll still have cars. Let's just
That's not the
recognize
issue with housing. We don't like
we're
to.
still gonna have cars. It's still gonna be around, or at least even with public transportation, if how people are gonna get here and how. Just everything interconnects. It can't just be I think the mindset of developers are, I have this idea in mind, I want to develop it, I have the money, and then we'll build it. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
But it has to, all of the developments need to connect together in some way or the other.
And work off each other.
Yeah, and it has to provide for not just the current community and the current needs. We're getting a lot of affordable housing because that's a current need. But beyond that, we also need mixed use housing, we need senior housing, all of these other things that it takes more than just building a project and then being done with it. It has, it's a
the
larger
macro
scope.
look.
Yeah.
Macro look of like the unforeseen consequences of something, and being, like I said, everyone has to be around the table because that's what makes it well-rounded. You know, you can have the socialist anarchist kind of type of mentality that like, capitalism is against me. You know, like we need like the also the financial like capitalistic mentality to see what's economically like vital, right? And so it's a play of everyone being engaged at the table to see the compromise. Yeah.
So you know,
Regardless of-
I think the vision that I think I would like to see in Little Saigon District, walking down Jackson Street after all this development is, I would like to see that the small businesses are thriving. I like to see a walking pedestrians feel safe walking around with the family, with the kid. I want to see the street, the car are friendly to the pedestrians and friendly to the neighborhood. They feel safe as a car driver or people walking in the street. I like to see a lot of parks in our neighborhood need to sprung up, need to
Green space.
have to have a place for people to feel like they want to have a picnic in our little district. And you know, having a picnic, you can go to all these small businesses to gather all your stuff and then just walk to the park and having a picnic with the family and hang out. And I want to see the residents who are Vietnamese live in the neighborhood, and Vietnamese folks who are doing business in the neighborhood. And I want to see tall buildings. I want to see, you know, amazing, beautiful architecture important. That because I think a lot of architects in town are just doing for money. They're not doing for their legacy. And I feel it's so sad that, you know, can you imagine if you use your education to create a piece of landmark that people would appreciate for generation and generation.
This goes back to landmark.
Instead of, you know, how much can I fit? How many rooms in here? How much can I make the most retail? To me, that is the wrong way of looking of building a community, on building Little Saigon district. And to me, I challenge all these designers and developers to think in that way. And when you are thinking that way, you're going to reflect what is it. When you design a landmark, an amazing building, you look at surrounding. What can I reflect? And that's when they come to the table. But when they are, oh, we have to respond to this budget. Our investor put this money
Or this
in. We need to
time
come
frame.
up with this money to respond to our investor. Then they lost. And that's why we are here. That's why we wanted them to think about that, and we wanted them to include that vision for the future.
You want to talk about the landmark project?
So we actually just have 10 minutes left on the card, and I realized I forgot to ask you guys to introduce yourselves.
Okay. Mời anh.
She is practicing the advocacy of the Vietnamese culture. The older person, she said mời anh. So so
I didn't even know I did that.
that's very good.
Yeah.
So my name is Tam Nguyen. So as I mentioned, pharmacist, and become a restaurateur, and become a community activist or involvement with the
Leader.
community. No, I don't know if I'm a leader, but that's what I would like to see myself for now, and hopefully that I will evolve out that to be something that's more exciting down the road.
It's plenty exciting.
Years ago, I'm in the fam, and I am part of the Pho Bac restaurant. Also part of Friends of the Cycle on board. I gave myself my own title of creative director. So I love that stuff. But yeah, that's who I am, and I work with these amazing people.
Quinn Pham. I'm the current Friends of Little Saigon board chair. I do just a lot of advocacy. Mainly, my focus is in the nonprofit and policy world. So, yeah.
Is that a wrap?
I think so.
Yeah.
You were talking about the landmark project.
We can
There you go.
Yeah,
cover
later?
that, yeah,
Okay.
future interview.
Why did you let it soak so much?
Because
Mine.
no, can you give me a bowl of
Okay, what kind of pho do you want?
Alright.